It's a terrible time in most businesses. I'd love to be in telecommunications or food right now as my main business. And it depends a little for me. I was in a board meeting of Domino's this morning, fast food, that business is going gangbusters. Lovely spot to be in. Bridge climb, tourism, yeah, having a tough time, and it's probably getting a bit tougher. So yes, it is about certainly tweaking our efficiency pretty significantly. It's really looking for a much better return. It's much being more immediately responsive to our customers. The business has now many more walk-ups than it would have had earlier. People are making those decisions later. They're putting it off until there's a good deal or the sun's shining. So there's a big change. And of course, about the last thing tourism wanted was swine flu right now. You know, we talk about bad news and the challenges of managing that when you've got a discretionary purchase like climbing the bridge. So for us, it's the immediacy of our response, even just a change that Todd and his team who are here tonight made, which was up until just quite recently, you could book online, but up until 24 hours before the climb. We've tweaked that a little further and you can now book up until minutes before the climb. You know, so just that change maybe gives us another 5 climbers a day. So I think it's doing all those imperative things to deal with. Having put on the bulletproof vest when I get up in the morning. Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes people say, oh, but you know, customer service, it matters in good times, but in bad times, it's just all price. That's not our experience at all. We're seeing customers even more focused on cost and also service is equally important. And the reason why that is that they're exposed for the first time to poor customer service because they've had often stripped away from them in the IT and department and the finance department, all those sort of helper bees they used to have. And sadly now the decision makers having to deal with a service provider and they're even more sensitive to service today than they were maybe a year and a half ago. The other thing in our business is of course debts, and certainly the one thing we are exposed to is bad debts from our customers. And we've really in the last 6 months just transformed the way we deal with our collections. We've transformed the application of our credit policies. We use things like Google Alerts and other kind of services to provide real-time information on our customers rather than just treating it like a statistic. So we're finding in some of those chat rooms and some of the Google Alert services that we're picking out chatter out there around the creditworthiness of our customers. We're using that to put customers on credit watches and really hone in on those. So that's been an important change for our business. We're also on the credit side of things subscribe for a lot more real-time alert services. And you know, I'm not sure how many of you spend time on the credit side of your business or prospective business, but it's actually very cost effective. You can get an enormous amount of information through the web that gives you advance notice of potential credit issues coming up in your customers.
I can think of lots of things I weren't told. Now, I mean, for example, I wasn't told that it would take, whatever your business plan says, it's going to take twice as long and twice as much money. I wasn't told convincingly that people are your most important asset. You know, you'd have all these gurus standing up there telling you people are your most important assets, and then they treat everybody terribly, so you didn't quite believe them. And then I think the third thing I wasn't told was how important people like the building we're in here now, the Ernst & Youngs of this world, are people who actually analyse your numbers. And you know, we used to just look at sales and margin, and that was about it. So I wasn't told how important that is, and I think they're the 3 things. But perhaps the most important thing that somebody said to me once, or said to both David and I once really, was, you know, you guys don't have to do it all yourself. You can get advisors. And I think that was probably the most important.
One of my characteristics, unfortunately, is I'm a procrastinator. Get lots of great ideas, but went for lots of years pretty frustrated that many of those, what I thought were good ideas, I didn't actualise or didn't do something about. So I started a habit at age 35, so I was a late learner. And that habit was I gave myself 3 things I would do in the next 24 hours. And I then classified them in an A class, a B class and a C class. The C class would be polishing my shoes that I actually didn't do today. And then a B class might be a little more difficult, and the A class thing might be, making that takeover offer or talking to the bank about increasing the overdraft, something pretty significant. And then the system for me was, unless I'd done those three things before I got into bed that night, I actually couldn't sleep. So it became a pretty effective way for me as a procrastinator to get on and do things. And I started giving myself the easy things, and I built up a bit, and I've just continued that habit.
We've systemised the collection process, taken away some of the discretion from the collectors, so there isn't discretion to say, Kathy's accountant had a query, therefore they don't have to pay the bill. Or Paul's accountant had a dispute over 3% of the bill, and therefore 97% can be unpaid. So the trick is to catch that early. So we've got an escalation process. It means that by the time 60 days arrives, not only is the collection process and the legal process well advanced, but we also would have suspended service before that. So it really would have come to a head. We find that has the effect that people do end up paying the 97% that's actually valid charges, and the 3% that's their query or their dispute, we can deal with, and we've increased the number of people who deal with inquiries and disputes to take that explanation, in some cases an excuse, away. So it's really about just systemising, not leaving it to chance, not leaving it to the collector who's looking after that portfolio, or the manager, and that's made a real difference. It's also created an expectation amongst our customers, because they now know that if they don't take action to pay an invoice with a certain date, certain actions will follow.
Well, during this time, there are lots of opportunities, because obviously there's a lot of retailers going broke, and exactly those sort of things are coming up, and opportunities are coming up. Obviously, it comes back to this sort of whole idea of having the data, analysing the area, analysing the sort of people that are around the area, and the potential for growth. If the store has been on an upward trajectory, then you know that there's still potential for growth in that area. The problem is at the moment, unlike this company, how lucky are they, all this cash, we don't have a heap of cash because we've grown our own business ourselves. And it's very hard to borrow in this sort of climate, because you can borrow from the banks at the moment, but they want, a hold over the whole business. They want to put everybody's name, you've got to give guarantees, and you've really got to put almost everything at risk to go ahead and do that. So the decision looks like it's a no-brainer, but in actual fact it is a bit difficult. And I think the other thing is, at this particular time, is that, yes, people do have to eat food, but, is things so good for us at this time because of the fiscal monetary policies that are in place? I mean, the stimulus packages really work for us very well. But are we? Is it just media hype, what's happening? Or are we actually looking at 8 to 10% unemployment in October? And that's the other thing that is also the other decision there on whether you do go ahead and buy that store. So it's a big call.
When I looked at it a bit more, I realised that risk management actually is a really important function of the business, and my perception of internal audit from the bank were in fact completely irrelevant, in that risk management, if you're the right sort of person who thinks like a business person, is in fact as useful as the people who think about strategy. And having the confidence and the courage to look at risk at the same time as looking at strategy has really helped our business make good decisions. The trick is to do it in a structured, systemic way, not to pick up some of the obvious downsides on the back of an envelope, but actually take the time to have someone who's not involved in the transaction to just say, let's map out all the possibilities, and then let's work through it and just see every strategic opportunity has a risk. And I think separating the two roles but having them in the same room together has really helped us in the last 7 years now think about the way we run the business. And it's kind of brought a healthy conversation to risk rather than someone saying, oh, don't be such a negative, cold water pourer. In fact, people try to see risk as being actually a healthy part of making decisions.